Weed is not addictive. It's a plant. It's a herb. It was given to me on God's green herb. But where I used to smoke weed to let loose, to have fun, now I just smoke weed to live, exist, bake in the sun. I use every reason to get high. I'm mad, I'm sad, I'm excited, it's raining, it's night, it's morning, it's my lunch break. Weed consumes my thoughts. When I hear the word weed, THC, cannabis, green, ganja, kush, dro, when I see the plant symbol, I feel connected. But I'm not addicted. Weed is not addictive. It's just a plant. It's just a herb. It's medicine. It's my everything.
I do. I know a lot of weed smokers. Have you ever smoked?
I have.
Okay.
And I inhale. I did inhale. It was a long time ago, but yes. You have to go. I just broke loose.
I mean, was it college?
Okay, so my problem with Kamala is not that she talked about smoking weed and she sent a lot of black men to jail for the same thing. It's not my issue. I'm not even here to pick one side or the other. I think it's all a shit show. But I find it interesting why one particular side tends to push things that keep us distracted, that keep us accepting bullshit. Now, why do they want you high? Why do they want us high? Now, I think that they make us think that it's this war on drugs, that they don't want you smoking weed. It's this great thing that government doesn't want you to smoke. But I think they want you to smoke it because it keeps you accepting any and everything. No matter what's going on in our lives, when we do tend to smoke weed or ease our anxiety, it makes us forget our cares. It makes us drop our guard and not be as concerned with things that maybe should matter to us. Now, when I first started smoking, when I first quit, I had a fear of talking to people that got on my nerves, and I felt like now that I'm not smoking, I'm not getting high. How am I going to tolerate their conversation? But maybe that was a good thing. Maybe I should be in my sober state to where I don't accept bullshit. I don't accept things that don't sound right, that don't sound correct, and just treat them as, and just since I'm high, I'm kind of finding the humor, finding the good out of what they're saying, and not truly paying attention to what they're actually saying. Now, the misconception we get with weed is that it makes us this deep thinker. It makes us hyper aware, which it makes us aware on either a lot of things, so we don't actually focus on one particular thing, or we focus on some so particular that it's not even a big deal, but we don't actually focus on the things that actually matter. Now, once we're in our sober state, you know, it's hard dealing with anxieties or fears or worries or things that just don't sound right. So we want to have a drink, have a joint, have something that takes our cares, takes our worries off of what's really going on. That's why you saw the rise of dependence on alcohol and weed in the times of COVID, because people didn't want to deal with what was going on. But eventually you have to deal with what's going on. And when you continue to abuse weed, to smoke weed every day, all not just every now and then, but every single day, from the moment you wake up till you go to sleep, it prevents you from actually facing those problems head on in your sober mind, and you accept a lot of bullshit. So let's stop accepting bullshit. Not saying you can't smoke some weed every now and then, but be very weary of smoking weed every day, all day, in these times right now, because you won't be aware of what's going on. You won't be so in tune with what you hear, with what you see in a clearer, I say clearer, in a clear, sober state. So we are living now in some perilous times. There's a lot of things that are going on that wouldn't have happened 10, 15, 25 years ago. And we're starting to accept these things as normal because people are not in their right mind. They are not in their correct headspace. And them telling you to smoke weed, and it's okay if you're in college and you're young, they want college students to vote, and they also want you to experiment with weed. You don't know what you're doing, so they'll just put anybody in office and accept any and everything. They're not pushing weed to you to send you to jail. They pushing it to you because they want you to be unaware of what's going on and very accepting of any and everything. So be very aware. Be very aware. Until next time, guys, like, subscribe, share. Most importantly, comment below. Remember, we are all in this together. Peace. Life is but a vapor. So why do we treat it like we have up to 900 years to live, like the days of Noah? Life is short, so why do we live like we will die tomorrow, but at the same time live like we have all the time to do a 180? Is there a such thing as meeting in the middle? I smoked my first blunt at the age of 16, and that started an almost 20-year relationship. Weed became my secret life partner. It became my sounding board. Weed became my stabilizer. Weed was my comfort zone. And what was wrong with weed being those things for me? Why not keep it a part of my life until the day I die? Well, the older I got, the older my kids got, the deeper my spirituality got, I realized that I myself and things in my life must change. Although it can seem comfortable to hang on to things that we know, to hang on to these familiar spirits, that does not promote growth in our life. See, to experience growth, we must go through pockets of uncomfortableness in life. We must welcome unwanted pressure in our lives to stimulate change. I came to a point in my life where weed wasn't necessarily hurting me, but it was keeping me comfortable. It was keeping me stagnant. And in turn, that was slowly killing me. To be a better father, to be a better husband, to be a better son, to be a better believer, to be a better man. I knew it was not beneficial for me to keep cannabis in my back pocket. I needed to know myself without the filter, understand my emotions and my actions with a clear mind, and to prove to myself that I did not need this thing that I had grown so accustomed to. People say, it's not a big deal, it's just weed. But I knew it was a big deal for me. It was just weed, but I had put it on a pedestal in my life. It dictated all areas in my life, almost like a six-armed God. Took a few tries, but when I finally put my all into it, it was so easy to let go. And I can say it was one of the best decisions I've made in my life. I left the relationship not hating weed, but understanding a new version of myself. And I can tell you, my future self will most definitely thank me. Okay, awkward conversation. Weed and adult content. Why are they a dangerous combination? Okay, and I'm specifically talking to men, not saying women can't fall into this category too, but you know, us men and our perverted minds. We are more prone to fall into adult content. We are more prone to be addicted to weed. And this has become a combination that's very prevalent in today's youth, today's generation. Okay, we are more alone than ever. We don't have friends. We have our social circle in these online communities. We're playing video games, we're watching adult content, we're smoking a lot of weed alone. Now, whereas weed used to be this social stimulant, it's become a stimulant for us to propel us into loneliness, into being alone, being content with ourselves. So we're getting high, we're smoking weed, and many of us, not all, many of us are falling into the trap of getting high and watching adult content. Now, towards the end of my journey with weed addiction, I would notice when I was getting high, I would have heightened sexual thoughts. Now, there are many people that, men are different. There are some men I've heard, if they smoke too much weed, they can't get it up. They can't actually perform. Whereas some people, they smoke weed, they get extremely horny. So it differs from man to man. Now, for me personally, when I smoke weed, it was almost like an aphrodisiac. I would notice my mind would go into long trances of thinking about sex that was started from some simple that I saw on TV or on my phone or just out in the world. And this would propel me to watch adult content. Now, I did stop adult content years before I actually stopped smoking weed, but still, we can't undo what has been undone sometimes. We can't undo what has been done. I sound like Kamala Harris. We cannot burden what has been unburdened. We can't undo what our eyes are seeing. So even when I wasn't watching adult content, I would notice when I was getting high, I would think a lot about sexual situations. And I could imagine if you are going through weed addiction and you're still watching adult content, how they sort of go hand in hand. Again, we don't have friends, we don't have girlfriends. I'm not saying every Gen Z doesn't have a girlfriend. No, some people are dating, but there are many that have fallen into this trap where they don't have in-person friendships. They're not seeking relationships, and they're being content with just getting high and jacking off. Let's just be honest. And when we have this combination of them both, it sort of is our safety blanket. We get so used to doing certain things, and men especially, we are creatures of habit. We can do things day in and day out, day after day, year after year, and be content with that. Me and my wife was talking about how men are, like I said, much more prone. We can do the same thing for forever. Women like change. Women like spontaneity. They get bored easily. We don't get bored. We get content with doing the same thing. And when we fall into the cycle of weed addiction, where we have anxiety, we're not sleeping, we're having social issues, and we're getting high, we're becoming content with ourselves, and then we go and we're watching adult content, we are scratching our itch of a relationship. We are soothing that desire for wanting a girlfriend, for wanting a wife, for wanting just interaction with the other sex. And when we combine these two things, we just can easily fall into a trap of depending on weed, of depending on corn to ease anxieties in both areas of life. And I fear this for Gen Z because I do have a son that's in Gen Z. And I do fear that, what if they don't seek relationships because they're so used to corn and used to weed? Now, I know he doesn't smoke weed, but I mean, I don't know what he does in his free time. And I do know they don't go out on dates like how we did when I was younger. So I just worry and get scared that they aren't going to pursue relationships because they are getting high and they're on their phones, they're on their computers, and they're just not seeking outside relationships. So I'll warn you, if you have an issue with weed addiction and we're using weed to cope with the stresses of our everyday life, and then we desire a girlfriend, we desire a relationship, and we turn to adult content to fill that void. If we do that enough, we will fall into the cycle of not actually changing our surroundings, not changing our situation, not actually seeking relationships. And then before we know it, we are 35, we're 40, we're lonely, we don't have a wife, don't have a girlfriend. We're just stuck in our rooms online, and we're just a sad sack of shit. So be aware if you are smoking weed a lot and watching porn a lot, because it may lead you down the rabbit hole of loneliness. So maybe you guys are different. Maybe you can smoke your weed all day, every day, watch your porn, and go out and have friends and have a girlfriend, have a wife. I think for most, they don't, but maybe you're different. I don't know. So until next time, guys, please like, subscribe, share. Most importantly, remember, we are all in this together. Peace. Fool, you're pathetic. Go work for Big Pharma. You're stupid. We love Mary. God gave it to us. How about trying to help people quit real drugs? Stop trying to stop something you can't control. You have one follower. Your stupid site. Suck my dick. No one stands for what you stand for. You're stupid. You support bull pills and fentanyl. Really? Okay, so these were comments on my Facebook post I posted on one of my latest videos. And I'm always surprised by the overwhelming topic of whether weed is addictive or not. I never realized I made this channel to help people. So I wasn't aware that people felt so strongly about weed. And it's kind of crazy that for a drug that they say is not addictive, that it brings good and makes people happy, makes people understanding, cools anxiety, that I'm met with like so much, what should I say, hostility about making a video about helping people quit weed addiction. My videos don't stress that people should not ever smoke weed, or the idea of trying weed is bad, or weed is bad, it's not good for you, it's the devil's drug, people should never smoke weed, it's a gateway drug. I don't believe that. The same way I don't believe anybody who has a drink is an alcoholic. Now, should we drink every day, all day? No, of course not. But there's no debate on whether alcohol is addictive. Not saying everybody who has a drink every now and then is an alcoholic. So I'm not talking about people who just smoke here and there, or really, I'm talking to people who recognize they have a problem and they want to quit. But for whatever reason, when I put these videos out, people are so combative and so defensive on the topic of weed. When I was a weed head, like, and I heard somebody say, weed is not, weed is addictive, or you shouldn't smoke weed, or, you know, weed is bad. I didn't feel like I had to jump to weed's defense and curse somebody out or be belligerent about weed. I like, you know, they're probably right. I probably shouldn't smoke weed all day, every day, but, you know, I don't care. I'll stop when I'm ready to stop. Or I say, well, I don't have a problem. Not a big deal. I'm going to go smoke. But for whatever reason, people get very hostile about me saying, not saying people shouldn't smoke weed, just if you have an addiction problem, I'm here to, I understand what you're going through. Here's maybe some things you can do to stop your weed addiction. Or maybe if you don't recognize you have a weed addiction, here are some examples or some cases to where you actually might be addicted to weed and you don't know it yet. And this comes from experience. I'm not jumping in a genre that I know nothing about. One comment said that I should stop talking about weed and talk about real drugs and fentanyl. I don't know what fentanyl feels like. I have never snorted crack in my life. I don't know. Who am I to make a channel about quitting drugs on a drug I have never consumed? I don't know the struggle of a fentanyl addict, of a heroin addict, but I do know the struggle of a weed head, and there is a struggle in there if you recognize it. And with the weed community, I almost feel like it's this, you know, when they say weed is not addictive, you know nothing about real addiction, you know, it's alcohol, it's real drugs, you're just talking about weed. I feel like two women who are both victims of domestic abuse or domestic violence, and you have one that's getting drugged, getting beat, and you have one that he just calls her fat or he just calls her dumb. And it's like the one who's saying that's getting drugged and beat saying, you know, a man calling you fat or dumb or stupid or a bitch, you know, that's not real abuse, because, you know, I get my ass drugged down the street every day. I get black eyes. So, you know, boo hoo, he calling you a fat bitch and you're not getting black eyes. They wouldn't, people don't say that. So I don't know why we get the weed and it's like, I don't know why it's a debate on whether it's addictive or not. Obviously, weed is addictive. One person said, why don't I go work for a big pharma? Why would I want to work for a big pharma? That makes no sense. Me saying, okay, I had a weed addiction. I want to help people who also may recognize they have a weed addiction so they can not be addicted to weed. I don't know how that translates into me supporting big pharma. I have no clue. So I'm saying you should go take blood pressure medication and not solve things naturally. That has nothing to do with the topic of big pharma. If you want to be technical, I think big pharma actually pushes weed now, because if I say in the past, weed isn't taboo like it was. I think the media actually pushes weed on people now because they want you to be high. They want you to be happy and all easy-go-lucky and not paying attention to what's actually going on. So I think actually big pharma is in cahoots with the media, so they're actually pushing weed on us despite what people think. But like I said, I don't know how me wanting to help people with weed addiction saying I'm supporting big pharma. I don't know. And again, people say it's not addictive, but as I read you just a few of those comments I got, those sounds like some crazy ass crackheads. Like to say to me, talking about helping somebody quitting weed, and then you come at me with all this belligerent profanity. Like, who sounds like the drug addict? I thought weed was all about peace, love, happiness, and letting bygones be bygones, but they seem pretty uptight. People get pretty emotional, get pretty sensitive about weed. Like, did you invent weed? Like, why all the emotion? So again, I'm just curious on why weed heads are so sensitive about people talking about weed. And it's only with weed. Most alcoholics aren't going to defend alcohol. They know they have a problem. They're going to drink their booze and go on about their life as a drunk fish. If you love weed, go smoke your weed. I went and smoked my weed. It wasn't a big deal. I didn't get online cursing people out and trying to defend weed. If I'm doing that much to defend something that's not a big deal, like maybe it probably is a big deal for you, obviously, because you're getting your panties in a wad. So if you are a person that, you know, may hear what I'm saying or hear a video about quitting weed and it rubs you the wrong way, which it at one point rubbed me the wrong way, try to actually think about why it's rubbing you the wrong way. Maybe it's your body telling you, or your body knows it's probably something that you need to correct. So we'll try to fight that with our own emotion, our own feelings, and then, you know, tell somebody online to suck your dick. So until next time, guys, like, subscribe, share. Most importantly, you know, comment below. I mean, you can curse me out. I don't care. Or you can leave a nice comment. That will be nice too. But yeah, peace.
If I had to pay $5,000 to quit weed, I might. What's up, guys? Welcome to Quitting Mary. So the title of the video is, should I go to weed rehab? Now, me personally, I never went to rehab for weed, but it's out there. I find it interesting that it's like so expensive. Of course, we know we can go to things for rehab like alcohol, narcotics, which you probably may need those things. You may need rehab for those particular substances. But something like weed, do you really need rehab for it? Now, some may say, is weed addictive? is it not addictive? Well, I would say weed is definitely addictive. It's a debate on it's not physically addictive, it's just mental. Well, your mental is a part of your brain and your head, so I mean, I think mental is still physical, whether your brain needs it or your liver needs it, whatever the case. These things are all, you can say, physical if you look at it from a certain perspective. But do you need to go to rehab for weed? Now, rehab is very expensive, quite expensive. So I wouldn't do so, because I believe the good thing about, if you are addicted to weed, it's, although it is addictive, it's not like narcotics or alcohol. And I do think with work, with persistence, with self-control, you are very capable of quitting weed on your own without the help of rehab, without the help of counseling. You may need some counseling, because chances are if you smoke weed, you feel like you need to smoke weed every day, all day. Some will say, "Oh, I'll just love weed," or "I just love weed." But we're trying to mask something in our life. We're trying to cover up something in our life. If we have anxiety, if we're depressed, what are you anxious about? What are you depressed about? You're not depressed or anxious because you can't smoke weed. You're depressed about something else, and you're using weed to cope with that. So you may need counseling sometimes, depending on who you are, what you are, who you are, whatever. But the good thing about weed is, like I said, you are capable of doing this on your own. As I mentioned, it takes self-control. A lot of times with quitting weed, it's a matter of self-control. Some people might say, just quit, just don't smoke, which I agree, but there are millions and millions of people who struggle with quitting weed, who find themselves, they may say, "Oh, I'll quit anytime I want to," and then when it comes time to quit, then it's hard to quit. Or even when it comes time where you can't get weed from your weed man, then you like, "Oh, like I can barely get through the day." So to think that it's easy to just quit weed if you've been smoking for 5, 10, 15 years, it's pretty hard, but it does take self-control. So there are steps you can take if you're trying to quit weed without going to rehab. I would first try to wean myself off. Some can go cold turkey. I never was a cold turkey type person. I do think cold turkey can sometimes sabotage you. It's like going from 0 to 100. So if you're used to smoking every day 3 to 6 blunts a day, and you go to 0, that first week is going to be like hell. And so much hell that you will say, I can't do it. I need a blunt. So for me personally, I don't think going from 0 to 100 was good for me. But I do think weaning myself off was very beneficial, because it taught me that I could go a day without weed. It slowly got my body prepared to being used to not being on weed. So if you smoke, let's say every day, first start with not trying to smoke for one day. And you say, "Okay, great, cool, I can not smoke for one day." Next week, try 2 days. Week after that, try 3 days. Then try to go a whole week without smoking. It makes it so much easier. So it's a process that slowly weans yourself off, so you're not shell shocked. A lot of times I feel like we relapse on weed because we try to take on, just like anything, like with a diet. Let's say if you're trying to go on this diet journey, going from eating McDonald's and Burger King all day to just eating salads, that's not saying people can't do that, but going from one extreme to the other is going to be so drastic that's probably it's going to be too much to take on all at once. But if you slowly try to replace the french fries with the salad, adding more fruits, adding more vegetables, until we finally cross over to a full nutritious diet, it's much easier than just jumping in head first without a lifeguard. Now, that makes sense. Now, maybe you are a 0 to 100 type person. I am aware that some people can just decide one day and just go full into it. Great, if you can do that, I commend you. I do it. But if you're like me, like many others, we have to kind of jump in. We kind of have to slowly adapt ourselves to this new lifestyle. Another thing I would also do, I don't know what that was. Another thing that I would do is I would start to journal. I would start to actually put my thoughts on the paper. I never, growing up, I was never a journaler, especially as men. We think it's kind of a woman thing. But a lot of times, especially as men, we are unable to express ourselves, unable to really capture our thoughts and be able to articulate how we feel and why we do things. But when we journal and write our thoughts down, we actually get a more clear clarification on why we smoke, how it makes us feel, and also back to the idea of being anxious, being depressed, we actually can navigate those things on why we do choose to smoke weed every day. Because if we smoke weed every day, all day, there is some underlying reason on why you do. So you don't just smoke weed all day, every day. Again, not if you just smoke weed occasionally or every now and then and just smoke a blunt. But if you smoke weed as part of your daily cycle, there is some underlying reason on why you do so. And it's not because you just love weed. Now, if you have issue with journaling or don't know where to start, I did create a 30-day guided journal that is like is 30 days, day by day, kind of give you a guide each day on something to think about, how to get through your thoughts, and exercises to help you navigate your new life outside of weed addiction. And also the good thing about weed is it only takes about 30 days for you not to be addicted to weed. There are slight withdrawals from weed. You have things, some people have wild dreams or nightmares. You may not have an appetite. That was a big thing with me. I was afraid to quit because I depended on weed to eat. So the first week or two, I had to get adapted to just eating food again. We have mood swings, of course. Of course, we have mood swings. We kind of might be, I wouldn't say depressed, but very irritable. It gets better. We may be battling with CHS. Some people actually experience CHS after they quit for a short period of time. But the good thing about weed is you get over that usually in about a week or two. And we get to day 30, we have proven to ourselves that we can live our lives without smoking weed every day, all day. So, long story short, you don't need rehab to quit weed. All you need is your brain clear, some willpower, and some self-control, and you can get through it. So, guys, if you have different activities, different exercises, different thoughts on what helped you quit, or maybe you feel like I did need rehab. And also, weed rehab is like thousands of dollars, and I'm like, if I had to pay $5,000 to quit weed, I might continue to just smoke weed. Like it's you don't have to go to rehab to quit weed. So that's what I will say. People will say, "Oh, you don't weed's not addictive." Now I will say, you don't need rehab to quit weed. So I will give the people who are so against people who say they are addicted to weed. So again, like, subscribe, share. If you need help journaling yourself, visit Amazon. The 30-day guide to quit cannabis. It's not $1,000. It'll help you on your journey. So till next time, guys, we are all in this together, and you can do it. Peace. When I was smoking weed, I would calmly rationalize with myself and say, okay, is me smoking weed really a big deal?
is not affecting anyone around me.
In many cases, we can justify our addictions based on our outside circumstances, and with weed, we may say,
no one knows I smoke weed, so am I really addicted?
Or, I'm not stealing money from my mama, so do I really have a problem? You just smoke weed in your backyard 3 times a day, and who is that harming? But just because it doesn't harm anyone does not mean it is still beneficial for us. Caring for those around us but not caring for ourselves can be counterintuitive. To be a benefit to our community and our society around us, we first have to take care of ourselves. Now, I did not think weed was hurting me or anyone around me, and when we think of the term hurt, we think of physical pain. We sometimes abuse weed to alleviate the pain or distract us, but how long can we distract ourselves or block the pain? Weed was not necessarily hurting me, but it was preventing me from discovering the root of where the hurt was actually coming from. We have become so afraid to embrace our true self and face reality, but how long can we run from reality? How long can we not face our problems and become crippled to life's obstacles? Life becomes easier with practice and persistence, but if we continuously numb ourselves, we don't subject ourselves to the practice that is needed to master this thing called life. Also, we may not be thinking it is hurting those around us, but how can we be sure? If you are not at your best mental state for your community, for your family, for your significant other, not allowing them to experience you at your best may be hurting them without you knowing it. Now, I know some people may say they need weed because they may struggle with PTSD or sleep issues or health issues, but I'm not talking about those people. I believe we all should be trying to optimize our lives, and cutting out vices that may be dysfunctional in our life is a pretty good start. Quit using the excuse that weed is okay in your life because it does not affect anyone around me. You should start with the question, is it affecting me? Is it distracting me? Is it numbing me? And if it is, what is the reason you want to numb or to distract yourself? Explore your mind and track down your motivation on why you smoke weed all the time. And you may actually educate yourself about yourself. Take this with heed, and your future self may thank you.
I spend my life chasing you. You made my mind feel so brand new. Then we hit a wall, my life was on stall. I needed to quit, needed to stand tall. I put you behind me after I gave you my all. I put my lighter down, threw away my paper, threw away my pen, more green vapors. If you can relate, put your hands to the sky, take a big deep breath, it's your time to fly. On a new journey, reaching for a high.